You're listening to Tour Tech, your 5 weekly takeaways to tourism success. This series is brought to you by the digital tourism think tank in partnership with the European project Tourbit, which is co-financed by the European Commission's COSME program for SMEs. I'm Nick Hall, founder of the digital tourism think tank, joined by our series co-host Marie Texier, looking after Tourbit for Paris & Co. And each week, we'll be bringing you insightful discussions with tourism SMEs undergoing digital transformation together with the innovative tech partners who are guiding them on that journey. Today, we're heading to Portugal to meet with João Silva Santos from the innovative startup Merytu, who is working to solve the challenges of recruiting and placing temporary staff in the hospitality sector. We'll also meet with Duarte Leal from Hostels Independente to discuss the group's journey towards embracing new digital workflows to enhance their day-to-day operations and, in doing so, elevate the guest experience. Now, this is one that I believe will be really interesting for every business because it's particularly relatable. What do we have in store?
Indeed, we all know that recruiting talent in the hospitality and restaurant sector is really difficult nowadays. But through digitalization and the good tool, we can solve this problem. So I really invite you to listen until the end to understand how.
Let's take a listen.
So my name is João Silva Santos, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Merytu, a project that started 2 years ago due to the needs of staff in the hospitality industry. So myself and 3 other co-founders, we had this input because 2 of them, me and 1 of them, we are from the industry. We managed teams in hospitality for many years. So we felt that another model to fulfill some needs in the industry must be done, comparing to the traditional outsourcing models we had at that time. So the idea started. We started to develop some specs, some analysis, and then we asked for investment. So nowadays we are 5 partners. And we came up with this model. It's a very simple model that connects freelancers to companies in the hospitality and restaurant industry, and also for event companies, wellness, and we are starting analyzing other sectors as well, because this model is very simple. It works in a very simple way. The company with staffing needs just publishes an invitation through the app, which is then accepted by qualified professionals whenever, wherever, and whomever they want to work with. So we have more than 21 functions in the areas of hospitality, catering, events, and wellness that goes from cooks to waiters. And these professionals are organized in levels of experience. So that's the main differentiation we bring to companies. And we just launched the app in 21. That's the year we began working with Independente as well, who started using our technology.
My name is Duarte. I am a co-founder of a small hospitality group in Portugal. We started operating in 2011 out of Lisbon with a hostel. It actually became the first hostel to feature on the Louis Vuitton guide of all time. So it was a great omen. We began our operations by opening the hostel to the public. We always believed in the concept of sharing heritage and the history and the culture of the city, not only with the travelers, and make note of travelers and not tourists, because we focus on travelers, as well as the local population who in fact inhabit the city on a day-to-day. And the concept of independent is really all about that. It's about traveling free, traveling independently, and connecting locals with travelers and intercrossing cultures, habits, ways of being. And so one of the things we have focused on creating and developing throughout these years, and now we have 4 properties, is creating social platforms. So we believe our properties are first and foremost a place for people to engage socially and to fulfill one of humankind's most central needs, which is to connect and to engage with other people and to feel heard and to connect and to talk. And obviously traveling has become, particularly in the last 20 years, even though it's a tradition that in the modern era became relevant over 150 years ago, it has, with the democratization of flights and with the advent of the internet, traveling has become a synonym with well-being, and it's a number one criteria on the wish list of most generations currently in adulthood or in teenage years. The Independent has attempted to fulfill those needs. It has operations, properties, 2 hostels, one in Lisbon, one in Porto, and 2 hotels, one in Comporta, an hour south of Lisbon on a beautiful coastline, and another one in Lisbon called Independente Bica. We've recently rebranded the group to be called Independent Hotels and Hostels, precisely because we believe that our philosophy and the métier that we're in applies to all types of hospitalities, whether it's a camping site or a 5-star hotel, which, by the way, we're developing a 5-star hostel to open in 2026. And essentially that's it. It's founded by 4 brothers, with me being the youngest. I'm a co-founder and managing partner. Currently, 2 of us are executive, the other 2 are non-executive. And we hope to continue on this path of implementing and developing units and social platforms to the vision of heavily curated and handpicked design in very particular and special locations. And hopefully in the next few years, we'll expand to the Algarve and potentially more into the mountains and in the islands. In not such a nutshell, that's who I am professionally.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm curious to know, how did you end up working with Merytu? Why did you choose to solve your challenges with Merytu, and what were the challenges you wanted to solve?
There's 2 parts to that question. The first part is, as an introduction, both Independente and Merytu are co-invested by a Portuguese VC called Portugal Ventures, which is a local venture capital group who are co-invested by banks and the Banco Fomento de Portugal, which is basically a bank with the mission to help invest in entrepreneurial fabric of this country. And we are both co-invested, so we're part of their portfolio. We were presented by the board, presented to Merytu by our board member, Miguel Barbosa, who throughout our several and monthly meetings understood that we, as many players in our industry, had a problem in scaling and adapting our operations, not only to seasonality, so where demand goes up and obviously human resources needs to be as much as a variable cost as possible for you to have a lean operation that's very engaging and structured and optimized, but also procuring and finding the right people that are in line with our mission and with our vision is extremely hard, because you would hire companies that provide extras. You would be in a non-digital, I would say, platform, so you'd contact them via phone or via email, request so and so. So it was very rigid, and it wasn't a fluid mechanism. And also, you would get pretty much anyone. It wouldn't be adapted and tailored to any particular unit or operation. And so you'd be like playing the lottery. You could get someone highly skilled for a sort of underskilled job, or someone underskilled for a highly skilled job. And so when we spoke with Miguel told us about Merytu, a recently incorporated company. Obviously, their business model is brilliant. It makes absolute sense that you're disrupting the HR industry by giving managers and directors of different business units the ability to request sort of tailor-made to their needs and to the demands of every day. So that's how we began working, and we started with 1 property, and we've been scaling up to all the properties except Comporta at the moment, because it's a much more remote location, but hopefully Merytu will begin assisting us in that soon.
And João, maybe you can tell us, in practice, how does your solution work?
Of course. And Duarte and his team have been an example of how the technology can be assimilated in an easy and fluid way because they have a dynamic team and a very young and eager to do the things in a way that works and not in the same standard way that the industry just keep doing things. So our core is to give support to the main parts. So we are not a middleman. Our technology just give the transparency to the projects and to you that needs someone to reinforce your team. And you have to give your details, give your characteristics in order for someone to fulfill the standards your product needs, not one size fits all. Because if we have 5-star hotels or a low budget restaurant, the team needs are very different. So our technology have this organization by levels, as I mentioned before, and they have an hourly rate differentiated by the level. So when someone from the independent team needs for a banquet, for an event, he can just pick the profile that matches exactly the need. So if I'm a rookie guy in the industry just learning, I can be picked for simple tasks. But if I'm an experienced professional, I have that information in my profile. So this match can be very precise. So the professional, when he's invited, he can accept according with the availability he has in the platform. And then everything is done through our process. We charge the company, the professional issues automatic invoice. He has an automatic and free of charge insurance to cover all the risks doing the task. And then the company can rate the performance, and also the professional can give his feedback regarding the experience. So it happens that this is a way to do employer branding as well, because if you manage your team well, of course you will have more invitations accepted. And of course, all the professionals want to work with you. And this, of course, is a differentiation for the competitive set you have, because, staff nowadays have a lot of options. And this industry is threatened by other industries. And for example, from 2019, 25% of the active workforce just left for other industries. So when you can choose where you work, when you can earn above average, this attractivity changed completely. And now we have, in our database, 50,000 profiles already checked in and waiting for us to reach other geographic areas like Comport. We hope to arrive soon there. And that's why people want to work with this model. They are free to choose and to match exactly the needs the companies have. If they need just a reinforcement for a shift in Fridays, we are able to invite someone that is available and motivated to do that. Because when I work in a different model with a middleman and I'm asked to go, you can always have different agendas and I'm not so motivated to go. But here you have the commitment because I choose to be there, so I will give the best performance in order to make my reputation with the industry players. So it's a way for the people to show their skills, and you can even be hired to other types of commitments with the companies if both parties agree with that. We don't have any fees or any condition for that to happen. So we are, like I used to say, an open model of work. Okay, people are free to choose what's the best, and company as well.
And can you tell us more about your business model?
Of course, it's very simple. The app is free of charge for professionals, and the companies pay an hourly fee to work with Merytu.
And For your staff, was it easy, Duarte, to adopt this new tool?
Yes, we adopted in 2021 and just coming out of the pandemic. So it was a way to streamline and optimize some of our internal processes, especially being with two remote locations, so one in Porto, one in Lisbon. We wanted to consolidate and make sure there was a unified standard for the recruitment of extras to our teams and our operations.
And also, I know that your hotel and the way you work is really around technologies. So having this kind of tool for you was maybe easier and welcome, because I know that your employees, your mindset is really turned around technology, right?
I don't think I would put it that way, actually. I would put it differently. I think we live in a world where technology is obviously, this is going to sound absolutely la police, but it's here to stay. There's no regression from it. We do not design or develop our hotels to be intrinsically technological, but we do believe, and that's sort of our underlying principle, that where technology can promote a better integration and communication between two human beings, it serves a purpose. If technology, in fact, puts the social and human interaction on pause or delays it, unless it is in a given context, for example, you're in your room, obviously you don't need someone to come and knock at the door for you to ask something. You have phones, you now have technology with hotel TVs and all the platforms that we have in our hotels with state-of-the-art softwares. Then you can obviously use your WhatsApp, which is even easier and quicker. So those tools are obviously important because we respect your privacy. But where technology sort of narrows the divide and gets people to engage more, we believe then it's a good choice and it's a good investment. I'll give an example. If we can make the check-in process more streamlined and someone can anticipate that and do a pre-check-in prior to arrival and submit their passport and their details and credit card details on a platform. And when they arrive at our property, we're doing an ID check, confirming the date and the stays and the room booked. And that's done in 20 seconds. And from then on, we're acting as concierge and we're trying to understand whether you had a good trip and you're happy to engage with us and hear more about the destination, or if you had a bad trip and you just want to be taken to your room so you can lie down or have a shower and relax. So that's when technology is positive. So it's really speeding up the process of doing something that has absolutely no purpose and fits no consequential result, which is a check-in and getting your ID number and all of that in the system and getting you to sign the file. Also, and conversely, because most of our staff is either millennial or Gen Z by nature, I'm saying most of the people are born between maybe 1980, 81 and 2003, at the most 2004 this year, I guess. Some interns might be younger. These are people who are digitally native. We're either talking about the first generation to engage with technology, in the people born in the 80s up into the early 90s, or people who are actually born and we already had 3G and fast internet. So we're talking essentially about people who do all their banking, all their travel booking, all their communication, et cetera, through their phones and through technology. And it makes sense that you resort to mechanisms that they're native in and they're fluid and fluent. So as a company, and thank you, João, for that note, we believe that introducing certain elements and certain tools that can allow you to do your job quicker and easier so you can then focus on the important part of your job, which is really providing a great service and creating a great atmosphere in our properties, then we should use it. And that, I think, is the underlying philosophy. I wouldn't characterize ourselves as technologically focused, but we are definitely technologically fluid and engaging, and when possible, we'll make the right investments. Sometimes a bit more lo-fi, sometimes a bit more hi-fi, sometimes a bit more lean. Other times we'll go deeper into different introductions of technology, but we heavily believe in the benefits of having a streamlined, fluid operation.
And do you remember how did you do before having Merytu in your company? What was your process before that?
Like everybody used to do it, and most people still do. So there's essentially two ways to hiring extras if you need them. Well, three. The first one is you don't hire them because you have a very large human resource basis and you're basically on rotation and you're essentially overstaffed. But that is a model that's obsolete and it's very expensive. So it's reserved to certain types of positioning. So, super luxury, where as a line on your BP, obviously HR is one of the largest, but because of the ADRs or the check average you have at your restaurants and F&B operations, you can accommodate for that, provided you do deliver on the service. But all of us mortals, we have two choices. So the first choice is, former employees, people you've already engaged with, and you'll have a restaurant manager or front office manager or housekeeping manager who will pick up their phone and they will, traditionally make a call and ask, are you available? So it obviously is immediately to judge into your mind, and the foregone conclusion is that you're calling several people and not several people at once. So you're engaging with one person at a time and you're asking for their availability. You're not necessarily getting their availability directly to you. And this is if you're going direct to the staff. So a manager contacts 5, 6, 7. If he or she are lucky, they can get it on the first contact. Potentially, they won't get there. And their options are narrow. Sometimes they're not the best options. They're people who have not been the most dependable on, or we're talking about people who haven't necessarily done that job in that business unit, because obviously the better recruits will have been more full-time employed. They'll have a full-time job somewhere else, and they're only getting training when they're extras from you. So with Merytu, without going into the option 2, with Merytu, that's actually the entire opposite. You post availability and you have access to these thousands of applicants who have worked in all sorts of different places, who are reviewed by the businesses, who are on ongoing and constant training in different types of services. And so when a business manager at one restaurant will point out to, Marie, the basics of welcoming a guest, that's universal. That's not something you won't walk away with and having grown. Merytu gives us that. It gives us the option to have a much larger pool of constantly ever-evolving human beings who are doing this because they want to. They want to top up their wages and their income. And they're not doing extras for 10 places at a time. They're doing extras for the places that, they engage with and they like, and on their own availability. The other option is to request and to work with consultants and HR third-party companies. And, this is, like João was saying, he can expand into other businesses. There are large conglomerates of companies, manpower, who go from agriculture to industrial and to service industry. And you contact them and you tell them your needs, and hopefully if they have people available, they'll get back to you. But they go through the same process that you would anyway. They just have a larger database.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Maybe, João, you can tell us also, why did you choose the name Merytu? Because I think we can link that with the answer of Duarte.
So the name Merytu is the origin of it all, because at the moment we started doing our analysis, the work environment is full of variables. My career is full of factors that I don't control. And we started to find a fact that merit, the effort you put in things, is not the fundamentals for you to proceed to develop. So the concept merit is not the center of your development. So we needed more of that in your career consequences. If I'm doing a better work, if I'm putting a lot of effort into my mission on my professional context, I have to gain a direct consequence of that to improve into other levels, better payments, better options of career. And that's what guided us in our model. So you have several levels, you have several thresholds of experience, and you gain more with that. You have a better hourly payment, and it depends on the goals of each one. If I'm in Merytu just to save money, and I just work 2 days after my full-time job, that's okay. And that's a way to be in our platform. If I want to know other employers, to be in Merytu doing what we call gigs is better in 1 week than 6 months sending CVs and waiting for interviews, because you showcase your skills to a lot of potential employers. So all these types of being in Merytu are available and are valid, because the concept of Merytu is defined by each one. Your concept doesn't have to be like mine, and my career model as well. And with Gen Z and millennials as well, a little bit, the traditional models of career are fading away very quickly. So you have the slashers that want to work in 2 dimensions because they want, not because they need to. And these kind of combinations are not very easy to manage in a traditional way to work or to manage HR. So our open model of working gives the future of the companies a way to interact with these different models and to fit the puzzle needed into their operation with the availability of thousands of people that want to fit to work in their life and not the opposite. Because we are used to, as millennials and baby boomers, to have this kind of squared concept and 9 to 6. But these generations don't want that. Okay, they want to be in Independente because of the culture, because of the values, and then they want to stop to travel the world, and then they come back. And this is not the wrong way to be, because I'm not permanent in the staff team base. These are only different, and a big difference between generations. So I like to think Merytu has, with that Merytu perspective, everyone has this concept of merit, and this is defined every day, and the dynamics of this definition belongs to each professional. And that's our main core, and we want to keep it like this, because our technology, as we spoke and you mentioned, it's to bring the parts together in a precise way that wasn't possible before. So we are not here to replace teams, to put algorithms replacing experience. No, we are a tool for the people to use in whatever fits well for the company. Because that's the question every time HR knows about merit. Oh no, this will replace my job and my tasks. But the experience, the expertise they have, it's too precious to waste with this kind of routines that nowadays we can avoid with technology. So I hope I've answered your question, but it's very philosophic. It's our very core. So, but that's it.
Yes, you did. And I like the fact that your solution is also answering to the current evolution of the market. As you said, now is a younger generation. Maybe they want to change faster of employers. They want also the rating system you have implemented, I think, is really innovative. And now we are used to that also. You know, we rate restaurants, we rate our Airbnb and so on. So having also rating system talk to the people the freelance you are talking to. Do you want to say a word about the rating system?
So our rating system must be very lean, because the operation is always concerns the fast pace the client obliged to. So it's very, very simple. You have 5 points that you can, in a quantitative way, rate the professional. And if you want to specify some outstanding characteristic he had during the gig, you can specify. So these are confidential, okay? It's in your profile, you just have a total score, but the professional can learn with these kind of feed forwards, because these details can be in written feedback for him to acquire some skill he needs to improve. So this is the basis of Merytu, because with this kind of ratings, they can learn, they can invest in some differentiated skills to reach higher levels. So I'm glad you asked, because if we had more often these ratings mindset in our management and traditional HR management, I think people would have a more clear vision of what they must invest in order to go further and to reach better environment, better consequence of their work. So in each gig, in each professional commitment, the rating is mandatory. Okay, so we ask like 5 seconds to each manager who uses Merit in order to just with 2 touches complete this kind of rating. And otherwise, we need to know where the professionals are very well managed, where the mindset is investing in teams, so the market can know this in a crystal clear way. Because this kind of employer branding theoretical stuff that we speak a lot, this is very practical, and Merytu is a very easy way in order to put the employer branding strategy into practice.
Do you have any KPI or numbers you would like to share about your collaboration with Independent?
Of course. So regarding our partnership, we started in 21. It's like a whole life ago, because the fast pace of the modern rhythm is like this. So after the pandemic, everyone was thinking what's come next, and Merytu entered the life of a lot of companies. And Independent, I remember the first meeting with our team, and the curiosity was very high. And then we started slowly. So they had the pilots, they had the training, and in these months that we worked together, more than 54 professionals were identified through the app. Ones that work more regularly, others with more time to time, but mainly in the F&B, food and beverage area. So we are talking about stewarding, cooks, waiter, cleaners, barmen, and this kind of team and roles there. So this has been a very interesting adventure between our companies, because the input of our clients are very important to improve our technology. We are early stage startup, and the rhythm that we need to incorporate this kind of feedback is very fast. So Independent has been a very useful source of inputs. The managers who work with the app directly, they often say, okay, if you can reschedule this process, if you can add this comment here, and that's our life. We are always improving at the limit of our budget and resources. Of course, our VC also went to make the profit, but when you start in this market, you always know that there's someone that will reach the market as well. So we are prepared for that time to happen, and we are basically creating a very, very interesting environment to attract the professionals, because we know that this model being attractive, they will be motivated to give their best to our clients. So I think with 50,000 professionals in our database, it's a very good milestone to us to know that we are doing our way, and our clients, it's a very important part of that way, but we have ambitious goals to keep this attractiveness to professionals and to include other types of features in the app they can benefit from in order to have an entire community working freely, has the independent DNA, because this freedom we have in the app, it's the main core for them to stay with us.
Thank you. And Duarte, I would like to ask you if you have any key learnings and best practices you can share to the people that are listening to us that are hotel and that would like to be more efficient and improve their growth, for example.
I think this period has been particularly challenging in any industry for business managers and entrepreneurs alike. We don't want to go over, I particularly don't want to go over the details that everybody knows it. It's been repeated to exhaustion everywhere, and we're very conscious of it. But the distribution networks that were obliterated temporarily over the course of 2 years and progressively rebuilt, only to be fragmented again with geopolitical instability in Europe and then the war in the eastern front of Europe, and now with the Suez Channel. That has led to an industry like my own, which is a service industry, but that depends on hard products to make it happen. I mean, it sometimes might not feel like it, but even the detergents that our suppliers use in the industrial laundry machines to wash the clothes that guests will then stay at, and they have to be impeccably clean and very well kept. Even the machines that they have parts. Most of the times aren't produced in a country like Portugal, which is obviously very strong in particular industries, but it's not generally strong in all industries and doesn't have an underlying industrial fabric that can keep up with local demand, both on cost and on quality in all industries, as, for example, a country like France or Germany would be adapted to. That and inflation, and going back to João's earlier point about the 25% of this industry in particular, not to talk about the aeronautical industry, the great flight of people who have gone and decided to continue their careers or their areas of learning and training in other sectors, which is still, to be fair, quite ongoing, has created huge challenges in industries that are dependent on hard materials and transformation and are simultaneously a services industry. So we depend on a strong mix of skills. So from highly trained and skilled business unit leaders to creative chefs who can then work on a very repetitive environment to constantly redo the same thing that they did the previous 100 days with nuance adaptations with regards to the way we see this industry, to season and to local produce. Essentially, I think the best tip I could personally, from my experience, give is dig deep, analyze, but decide quick. It's much better to make a bad decision than to not make one at all. And most of the times, and I'm sure João shares this perspective, we'll make more wrong decisions than we'll make good decisions. But the willingness to hear, to incorporate feedback, to test and try, to chase up and measure and then adapt if the decision hasn't been going, or to try and consolidate and standardize, it's essential in any business. So if we're going, just to give you an idea, if in our core materials for transformation in food and beverage, with the inflation we've had and with the HR average salary going up over the last 2 years, our salaries have increased as a whole for the group around 40%. So we're talking about a cost that's already about 1/3 of our overall costs having increased by 40%. You can understand what that does for the margin. So you need to look for solutions like Merytu in different areas that will allow you to be more efficient, but without giving up on service and quality. And that's a challenge that most businesses face. I think everybody had the experience coming out of the pandemic that the service industry was in complete disarray. Whether you were going to a small coffee place or a ticket office at a train station, you could see people that weren't too happy about re-engaging in the context of uncertainty and having gone through a very scary period. So I think the best processes and the best practices for a business manager is to keep an eye on the essentials of your business, be unforgiving about your core vision and what you want to do, but be quick to adapt, be flexible to adapt, be curious, allow feedback from the people that you've hired who are obviously very skillful and knowledgeable about components of your business that you aren't, to try and test and give them the freedom to test and give them the freedom to make mistakes. Because in business, a lot of times we are judged mostly about our failures and not so much about our successes. So people are afraid to make mistakes because they're amplified on a much higher factor than the successes. But we fail a lot of times to appreciate that daily repetition of our work is influenced by a lot of external factors, personal factors about who we are, about the weather, what we've eaten, how our family are, how your friends are, objectives that you haven't fulfilled. So all of these variables have a component, a very, very high proportion of impact on people's decision making and the ability to carefully analyze the situation. So you have to allow people to make mistakes and to do trial and error and to progress. And sometimes something will work for Merytu, and if a competitor of Merytu shows up, they'll find that it doesn't work for them because it's people like João and their team that will make the difference for his company. And you have to play to your advantages and understand the people you have around you. So essentially, I think best practices is at the core is being sensible, being very focused on your vision and understanding your vision, not compromising too much, but be willing to be fluid and flexible in letting it navigate an economy that's in constant transformation.
Thank you. I often have a quote in mind that refers to what you said is fail and then fail better, fail again, but fail better.
Yeah, it's a very good quote. It's a Becker quote, I think.
And João, do you have any key learning or best practices you can share also from your side?
Of course, I can quote Duarte all the way, but it's pretty, I found the leaders of innovation with very solid ideas missing the part of implementation plan. So I'm very fascinated with my product. I know that the product must be fine, and I do a lot of planning, a lot of analysis. But if I am going to try to fit the product in the reality you have, probably you are going to fail. And then most of the people, they just think, okay, my product doesn't work. And that's the biggest lie I see in this entrepreneurial life. Your idea is very good and it works, but you have to have an implementation plan that must have some room, some margin for the failings Duarte spoke about. And then to be very fast learning with the failures you will have. So I think that biggest part of the numbers we see regarding startups' failures are not related with ideas, but with the implementation plans, with the team that they have. Because the most important thing, I think, is the team that you have with you to implement the vision Duarte spoke about. Because as a founder, you have a limited capability, and you have to be surrounded with believers that can see the reality and the way that we will change this reality. So with these people, and they don't know everything, because if you are dealing with innovation, you don't know pretty nothing, because it's the first thing, it is the first time that someone does that, and the failure is waiting for you. So preparing is not avoiding the action. You have to be prepared to learn a lot in the action and to have margin to adapt, not compromising, of course, the vision, but to adapt a lot, because there is a sequence in the implementation, and that sequence changes a lot. Okay, to reach that feature, you must have a basis, and that's almost impossible to anticipate when you plan, when you do your theory and your business plan before you go to action. So if you have room to change your implementation sequence, that's a very important basis for you to overcome the obstacles you will face. And then, of course, it involves a budget. You have a limited resource regarding that. So your failures must fit into your budget. And that's a very hardcore reality entrepreneurs must face. Okay, when preparing to survive, we have to define some room to failure regarding money. Okay, so our VCs are not limitless, supporting these kind of situations like pandemic crisis and all that. And you cannot prepare. As an example, we launch our app in the very middle of the pandemic crisis. Okay, we tried to contact our clients. They were thinking in laying off the teams. So, of course, this is a very extreme example, but there are always ways to survive, always ways to change this kind of sequence. Okay, in order for you to someday you look back and okay, was not the original idea, but the vision is here. Okay, so that's our main lesson here in Merytu: team and readiness to change at the pace of our clients, at the pace of our market. Okay, that's the main idea.
It's really precious to have your feedback as an entrepreneur, because maybe we have listeners that want to launch the new project, or maybe it's a hotel that wants to implement a solution, but they are afraid of doing a new step towards something they don't know. But what you said is really reassuring. We have the right to fail, and it's really okay to fail also, as long as we are surrounded by the good person and we can also react quickly to adapt. Maybe we can summarize or wrap up this discussion. And I would like to know if Merytu is available in other countries than Portugal.
That's the 1 million question. And we have a commitment. We are with all original plan and also with our venture capital, because they only invest in international perspectives. And we are planning in 24 to end this year with the right decision regarding the second country we will implement Merytu. Now it's still in discussion if we are nearby or if we will do a bigger travel. But yeah, we must internationalize and going to other sectors, other industries. We are right now negotiating with one more industry because this model is capable of adding value in several industries. Okay, so these are the two main factors we are analyzing: another country and another industry.
And if we want to know more about your company and what you're doing, we can just go on your website or contact you on LinkedIn, for example?
Yes, merytu.com and our Instagram page, our social media, or directly contact as entrepreneurs. We always receive these contacts, interactions, and that's what makes us grow as this community of people who are crazy enough to do innovative things.
Yes, so don't hesitate to go and contact João on LinkedIn. And for tourists that would like to stay at your place in Portugal, where they can find your hotel and what?
Well, hopefully travelers coming to Portugal, not so much tourists. You can find us on Independent, that's independent with an E, .eu, but we're on all platforms. We're in Porto. We're actually in Gaia, above a 250-year-old port wine cellar called the House of Sandeman. You might have heard of Sandeman Port. We are in Lisbon in 2 locations, next to Bairro Alto and in Bica, and then we're in Comporta. So feel free to come and check us out online, check out our pages, come and say hi on our social media. We have a very welcoming staff ready to engage with you and have a conversation even before you arrive to help you plan your stay. And hopefully when you're here, like the motto of the company, like we say, you'll arrive as a stranger, but you'll leave as a friend.
So that was a really interesting discussion. Some big learnings there for all of us to think about. What stood out to you, Marie?
I think I can summarize this discussion by this quote I really like, which is, ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail again, but fail better. And I think this discussion helps us to understand that with the good network, the good partners, and the right tools, we can manage to make our business grow and to answer the recruitment needs we have through digitalization as well, and failing sometimes.
I think that's a really powerful takeaway. But as always, we're going to try and summarize this in 5 takeaways. So let's have a listen at our 5 key takeaways.
And see you next Monday.
So here are our 5 key takeaways following that insightful conversation. Number 1, sometimes to find a solution, we need to be open to rethinking the business model from the bottom up. That's what Merytu is trying to do by applying successful principles typically found in digital unicorns, such as adopting a granular approach to integrating ratings and reviews throughout the entire process, and also finding a digital-first approach to instantly connecting supply with demand in the hospitality sector, in this case with temporary staff. Number 2, effective digitalization is often hidden, at least at the surface. Today's discussion is a great example of applying digital transformation to a specific area of the operational model, leading to an overall improvement when it comes to guest satisfaction. The solution presented in today's discussion focused on using technology to provide direct feedback to both employers and staff at a very granular level, whilst in doing so being more direct in how that feedback is delivered. What's the result? Well, we can see improved standards for both the guest and also the employee and employers, which ultimately creates an overall elevated experience. Number 3, always address a problem. All too often, we think technology first and forget that whilst technology can be hugely transformative, we must always start out by asking, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? In this example, Independente, Hostels and Merytu have come together to try and address a specific problem, learning and improving the approach in doing so, becoming stronger through effective collaboration. Number 4, be open to failure. I surely don't need to tell you by now that the best entrepreneurs failed more times than they can count before they finally made it. With that comes learning. We need to be open to failure. But we can also design an approach which embraces failure. Running small, rapid prototypes designed for us to learn by doing from both the good and the bad, because it's only by doing this that we're able to test our own hypotheses and improve through the overall learning approach. What do we learn in that process, and how can we implement those learnings in the next iteration? And number 5, a pilot is the starting point to scaling a solution further. When addressing a problem, see where you can run a pilot to test a solution in the market before investing fully in that solution. This will likely help you to scale something really interesting and learn early on about what's working and what's not. And that's where you can identify where perhaps small iterations are needed or a significant rethink of the entire approach. Today, we learned just how important it is for both the tourism industry and tech startups to find good ways to come together and learn from each other. By embedding one into the other, we can find scalable solutions and become stronger together. Well, that wraps up another week. Don't forget to join us in the next episode, where we'll be heading to Slovenia for more insightful conversations and, of course, another set of key takeaways to tourism success. You've been listening to Tour Tech. That's a wrap for another week. If you liked today's episode, be sure to leave a review and share amongst your networks across social. These two small actions make a really big difference. We appreciate the time you take to listen and, of course, to share. Make sure you don't miss future episodes. New episodes are released every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and get your podcasts every week in your inbox. Tourbit is a partnership co-funded by the European Commission's COSME program for small and medium-sized enterprises, and it's led by an incredible team of partners who are all as passionate about what they do as the businesses they're supporting. This includes the Catalan Tourist Board, Barcelona Chamber of Commerce, Paris & Co, Tourism 4.0 in Slovenia, Hub Brussels, Iceland's Tourism Cluster, the Lapland University of Applied Sciences, and NEST, the Tourism Innovation Centre in Portugal. On behalf of these incredible partners at Tourbit and the European Commission, and of course here at the Digital Tourism Think Tank, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week.